All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Murray Alliance's second series of our recovery efforts and recovery information. And today I am pleased to introduce to you our two speakers for today's topic, and that is Aaron Whitaker with Provincia Security. And Aaron, I think that you purchased Provincia in 2010. Is that about right? Has it been 10 years?
I started it in 2010. Yes.
Okay, so we're going to hear more about Provincia, I'm sure, here in just a few minutes. And so if you're not familiar with Provincia, they are a home security and security business. Aaron and his wife and two children make their home in Franklin, and he is a business grad from the University of Tennessee, which I know a lot of folks will be thrilled to hear that you're a good UT boy. And then also joining us is John Meese, who is with Cowork Columbia on the Square, a fairly new business as far as launched at the beginning of this year. But John has a real passion for entrepreneurs, raised in Franklin, graduate of Columbia State and MTSU. And a couple of things that are neat about John, not more than couple, but the couple that I want to point out is that he has musical talent and foreign language talent. So, that tells me that you must be a smart cookie, John. So
a gluten-free cookie, yeah.
He and his wife and their three children make their home right here in Columbia. So we are delighted to have both of you with us. And if you would, Aaron, would you just start and tell us a little bit about Provincia and sort of why is your passion about growing businesses and helping others grow their business?
Absolutely. So yes, Provincia started in 2010. I have got the true entrepreneurial spirit that I cannot get out of me. So I've technically been the owner, founder, or co-owner of 6 different businesses. And now with Provincia, I started it from scratch with 2 partners. Ended up buying both partners out within the first 2 years. And I was making a list here. I have now acquired almost a dozen alarm companies along the way in the last 10 years. So I've got pretty extensive acquisition experience. A lot of those really small, but some of them larger to us. And so Provincia now, as of last week, has 3 locations, 2 in Tennessee and 1 in Georgia, wow, and about 60 team members, full-time team members.
Well, and I just have to brag on you for a second, Aaron. So the very first time I met Aaron, I was in his office at Provincia, and I was so impressed by not only does he live and breathe by values and culture, he has it on the wall. And we could have talked all day about just his company culture and his philosophy about running his business. So even if you don't use Provincia, go by and look at his wall, because I love the visual display of this is what we stand for at
Thank you. Thank you, Kara.
I love that. All right, John, tell us about your passion for entrepreneurs.
Well, you can actually see my wall on the Zoom call if my wife moves her head just a little bit to the side. So I'm also a fan of putting values right there on the wall. And for us, while Cowork Columbia is a co-working space, in supporting entrepreneurs and helping Columbia's entrepreneurs build thriving businesses has been at the core of this business since we started it way back pre-COVID-19 in January of 2020. So like Aaron, I have this entrepreneurial itch I can't seem to shake. And so this is actually my third business. My first 2, a software company and a consulting company, are both online businesses. And then I've worked with a couple of different Inc. 5000 companies of, the fastest growing privately owned businesses in America, which I recently discovered Provincia Security was on that list. I found that out by accident. Anyways, all that to say, I've spent a lot of time in sort of the online, information product and software company space, but I've really fallen in love with Columbia over the last 6 years. And so we created this business as a way to support a local community. Now, help Columbia's entrepreneurs build thriving businesses. In January, that meant one thing. In June, that means a different thing. But the core mission is still there. And really, it comes from my heart that I want to do everything I can in my life with what I'm given to do as much as possible to eradicate generational poverty. And you may see like, wait, where'd that come from? But I really, truly believe that entrepreneurship is the best path out of poverty for anyone to take control and ownership of their future. And I kind of I bought into the whole, I'm a first generation college student, so I bought into the whole, like, get a degree and get a good job. And like, that's the way to, you know, change your family's legacy. And it's really not anymore outside of a few professions where a college degree really makes a huge difference. So while I do have a degree in Spanish and economics and was on my way to get a PhD in economics, I realized that wasn't actually, once I started looking at my job opportunities, I realized that didn't really actually mean anything outside of a fancy couple letters next to my name. So here I am now. My wife, Rachel, is on this call as well. Actually, my mom's here too. So the Meeses are in full representation.
All right.
Yeah, so we really fall in love with Columbia and Muletown, and we're grateful to have a presence right here in the center of Columbia, Tennessee. One thing I'll say before we jump in, Kara, if I can, is just that, you know, Kara and I started talking about and putting together these workshops as a way to just try to just provide some way to help and just kind of some helpful information. But I hope that genuinely whatever we talk about today, I say that as if we don't know, but I hope genuinely what we talk about today is helpful. But I also hope that it doesn't end here. And so if you find any of this helpful and you want to go further, we are actually licensing the curriculum from a company called Co-Starters. It's based out of Chattanooga. And Danny Coleman, who's here on the call as well, is working with us too, where we're rolling out a new program called Refocus and Rebuild. We're specifically designed to help local business owners redo your whole business strategy. So if you're interested in learning more about that, go to rebuild2020.info. Then I'll ask you a couple questions, but then we'll follow up with you from there. So there's both free opportunities and paid opportunities to really just walk through your whole business strategy. Because that's, I mean, we want to not just save small business. We don't want to just survive, but that's the topic of today's workshop, right? Survive and thrive, right? You have to survive before you can thrive, but they're both important. So rebuild2020.info, and I'll plug that in the chat as well. But go there. Thanks, Danny, for plopping in there. But go there. Just raise your hand if you'd like to know a little bit more about that. It's a low commitment. But then, Kara, I'll hand it back over to you to take it from here.
Awesome. And John, just like Aaron, when you and I first met, we could have talked for hours and hours.
Mm-hmm.
And
we did talk for a couple, I'm pretty sure.
I think we did. I do admire your passion, not just for yourself and for Columbia, but also for helping those entrepreneurs. So I thank you both again for joining us today and sharing your knowledge and your expertise with those that are on the call today and those that are gonna be listening down the road. So Aaron, I think you drew the short straw, so we're gonna let you start. And I know that you have some a screen to share with us and some actual slides that you want to show us. And yeah, I love it because I'm a very visual person, so I love it.
All right, I'm doing this to keep me on track. I'm a high DI personality, so while it was very hard to actually prepare a slideshow, it will help me not just talk too much. So yes, survive and thrive, how to adapt your business to the new reality. What a cool topic. I know Kara and John came to me with this, and I have been saying I knew a recession was coming. Like, I think anybody in the business world knew that at some point this wonderful ride we were having was going to come to some sort of stumble or frustration with the recession. And so I've been talking about and prepping for it for several years. I didn't know it would come because of a pandemic and that we would literally have to shut businesses down, but what a driver of change. But I've been saying for 3 years, I don't just want to survive in a recession, I want to thrive in it. And so I feel like we have positioned ourselves well for this as a business at Proventia. So, all right, I'm gonna talk about change, and John's gonna add a ton of great thought, I'm sure, after my boring slides. But we tell people up front when they come to Proventia that change is basically the only constant at Proventia. We have been continuously changing for 10 years now. So yeah, we started in 2010. Thank you for the shout out from John. We'd been working so hard for several years, and I knew that we had done some impressive things. So I secretly submitted all of our financials for the Inc. 5000. Without any employees knowing, because hey, if we didn't get it, nobody knew. And then turns out we got number 2,212, and that was for the periods of 15, 16, and 17. And we did not do any acquisitions. So I will talk about acquisitions, but for that period of time, it was all organic growth. And that was really exciting and really validating for our team. And we really did it for them to show them like, hey, everything we've been doing has paid off. Like it's an impressive accomplishment. Then in 2018, we did something really crazy. We'd had some little acquisitions, but we had 2 opportunities that in a 3-month time span, we doubled the size of our company, doubled the employees, doubled the customers, doubled the locations, the footprint, everything. And that was a massive stress on the business. So we had to deal with change at a level that we never had before. And as of last week, we just added a location. We acquired a company in Albany, Georgia, southern Georgia. So we are on a totally new path with lots of new change as we deal with even out of state, true regional provider, and we get all this stuff figured out. So that's where I'm coming from. As I said, I've acquired about a dozen alarm companies now, and I've made some observations about change. I have come up with what I'm calling the 3 mentalities of change that I have observed, and then what we try to train our team or to think about here at Preventia. So the first one that I see is necessary change. And I'm gonna introduce all 3 and then talk about them. The second is intentional change. And the third is actually negligent change. So what do these mean to Aaron? What have I observed? Well, necessary change are individuals, business owners that I've seen that are extremely resistant to change. Until they are absolutely forced to make the change, they just don't do it. Now, I've seen this because some people, let's face it, they're hard-headed. Sometimes they're just closer to retirement than a growth phase or a launch phase with their company. So they just don't have the energy to go and deal with the change. But boy, if it ain't broke, they are not going to fix it. I see this with several businesses because a lot of times when I buy a company, it's because the owner is retiring and they are worn out. And so they have this mentality. So what does it actually cause? The business is really dying. And none of them want to admit it to me when we're working through the process of acquiring. But I mean, really, they're in the decline because they just have not adapted to the changes that the customers want or that their employees want. And so, again, what I've seen is that you start to miss new opportunities because customer preferences are changing. Competitors are actually stealing customers that have probably been loyal for a really long time. And then there's also potentially problems with employee retention as well. It's really hard to keep good talent if they're in a different phase and they're open to the change and they can't initiate or drive any other experience at the company. So I put necessary change mentality in the danger category. That is not a healthy way to operate. Now, the complete opposite end of the spectrum that I have observed is negligent change. So this is actually someone that's I see really easily influenced. They'll hear something completely unvalidated, no facts behind it, and they'll start chasing it. Really make decisions on a whim, kind of always chasing those shiny objects. I equate this in our business. So we get to pick what alarm equipment we're going to put in. We don't manufacture any equipment. We have to work with someone that manufactures it. And we buy it through a distributor, and the distributors sell tons and tons of different manufacturers' equipment. And every week they want to run a new sale. And I see my competitors chasing the sales each week. And they are not putting any thought into how detrimental this is for the customer experience, how much time they actually have to invest in the learning curve, or how hard it is to provide good service on the back end. So we have to resist those shiny objects or those sales here at Preventia so that we're not operating in this negligent change mentality. It really, I've seen create a poor experience for the customer. Like I said, it's probably going to take longer because you've never touched the equipment before in our world, right? You've got to see, like, how does this apply in your world? But if the experience is different day by day or week by week or month by month without consistency, customers do not like that. Employees also do not like that. Employee retention is extremely important to have a good growth company and a long-term company. I think we all know that are on this call and taking time to even have a discussion here. And so even the most change-tolerant individuals, which we seek out, are frustrated without some sort of consistency and thought and education behind the change. So necessary change and negligent change mentalities are the two danger zones. So we try to operate in that intentional change mentality. So this is my encouragement, what I have seen successful at our own internal company and the companies that we really study and admire. We're very open-minded and willing to change. As I said, we tell people right up front when you get hired on, like we have constant change. But all of the change is based on an important or significant driver, not because Aaron heard something on the radio this morning when he's driving into the office. So that will cause frustration. So we really have good discussions about it. And more importantly, we have excellent communication regarding the changes that we initiate at the company. So both internal and external, we try to be very open with the feedback. So sometimes we make a change that doesn't work out, but when we're doing intentional change, our customers do have a level of consistency that works, that makes them comfortable, and so do our team members. They always know what to expect. And then it really builds trust. So we've made changes that didn't work, and we had to roll them back, both internal and external. But we had enough trust built up and enough goodwill built up with our, again, customers or employees, that we could do that. We could make a mistake, and then we could admit to it and say, hey, we totally screwed up. That was a bad decision, bad change. We're going to get away from that. Okay? So there's my 3 mentalities of change. And I don't know how long I should be talking, so I'll talk about some very specific things now, and I'm sure John is going to jump in. So I said, what change would I encourage everyone to embrace if you haven't already? It's 2020. We are, I think, more on the tail end of the worst of the pandemic, but we're certainly still in a pandemic. When I have to put a mask on to go into a bank, as I did just earlier today, and sanitize and sit 6 feet apart, and I think they were like, you take that pen with you, right? Like, the world is different. So here's a change I believe people should embrace that's really, really critical. How customers prefer to communicate. All right, so at Provincia, you can text us, you can call us, you can chat with us on our website, you can email us. We are going to pay attention to how people are communicating with us, and we're going to reciprocate that communication. Several years ago, one of our sales consultants was using text message in his sales prospecting and sales follow-up. And I was a bit old school, and I was like, hey, you need to pick up the phone. And I know a lot of people still think that right now. You've got to pick up the phone and have a real conversation. But he showed me his conversation over text closing a sale. And I said, well, I've got to embrace this change. So all of our entire office phone system, you can text us. We have multiple tools for our team to use text communication for the different things that we need to talk to our customers about. So it is not about my preference. It is not about my team's preference. It's about my customer's preference on how they want to communicate with us right now. So if you have not embraced that, that's a really important change to embrace. The second is that you need to make buying from you simple. We are always trying to figure out how to make it easier to do business with Provincia. The communication is a big part of it, but we say we will be one of the most accommodating service providers you ever work with. And that's making it an easy, simple process. Whether you need service, whether you want to buy from us, whether you have a question, we're going to make it simple. And so everybody's business is different, but I challenge you to think, whatever your process is now, however someone has to buy from you, can you make it easier? Because that is what people want, especially right now as we're having to adapt with virtual selling, different ways to deliver proposals. But normally at Provincia, we have delivered a proposal to someone days or weeks before our competitors can turn one around, because we've simplified our process so much and we win business for it. So if it's not simple and easy to buy from you, somebody else is probably going to earn that business at some point. And then the last thing I said was provide transparency in your pricing and processes. So again, something we're continuously trying to work with. Every business is different. Ours is, unique in that there's some custom things we quote for people, so we can't just publish everything on our website. Some days we wish we could, but we try to make the information easy to get and transparent. And even if we produce proposals or pricing for someone quickly, it's detailed, it has great information on it, it's itemized so that it's easy to understand. So there's a level of transparency rather than just one lump sum that they don't know what's included in it. We talk a lot about aligning expectations, and we always look at our processes and say, hey, how can we shorten this process? How can we make this process easier for our customers? So how you communicate, how your customers prefer to communicate, make it simple to buy from you, and provide transparency. This is all in an effort to grow our business and create success. And so I wanted to share with you a couple of very strategic things that we do at our company. 4Q conversation, and I don't have my chat box up, but put in the chat if you are familiar with the 4Q conversation. But this is from a book called Scaling Up, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. And it's all about having great feedback from your customers. So leaders at our company reach out to customers on a regular basis, and they have a 4Q conversation in order to get feedback. If you're not listening to your customers, the information is not going to be accurate. Again, it's not Aaron Whitaker's preferences on what Proventia should sell. It's what my customers are looking for right now. So it's a pretty simple conversation. First off, I try to tell people, I'm not calling to sell you anything. That it normally takes a minute to disarm them about that, since I'm calling and they're a customer of ours now and they think I want to upsell them something. But I just want to say, how are you doing? And get a little bit of rapport building going and open up a good dialogue with them. Then you ask them what's going on in your industry or your neighborhood, whatever is applicable to you and your business. You ask them, what do you hear about our competitors? And then you just ask, how are we doing? So I've had some of these calls that are just 5 minutes, and I've had some where customers open up and talk with me for 45 minutes. But our customer feedback information is critical. And then we come together as leadership team and we talk about these 4Q conversations, and we have accurate, real-time feedback from our customers. We do it weekly, if not monthly at a minimum. I know we can get busy, and this is one of the first things that can get cut, so we have to work really hard to do it. But this communication with customers can help drive the change that we need and give us guidance on that intentional change. Do we need to make that change or not? So 4Q conversation is something that we do. The other thing that we've done in the past, and we probably need to tighten up a little bit, but if you're not familiar with it, I wanted to share it just because it's been a good lesson for us. It's a Net Promoter Score. A lot of businesses use this to understand their customer loyalty. It's a simple question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend Proventia to your friends or family? And 8, 9, and 10 are or actually 9 and 10 are promoters, I believe. 7 and 8 are neutral, and everything below is actually a detractor. And it works out the formula to -100 to 100. And anything over 0 is good, but over 50 is really, really good. And at Proventia, we try to have a score of 75 or higher, just phenomenal customer loyalty. And that's very challenging, but that's the bar we want to set for ourselves. So there's some really good tools out there. I'd be happy to share to do Net Promoter scores, polling with your customers. There's some really affordable and easy tools, but it's something that we do monthly and actually very consistently with a tool called Podium. I'll give a shout out to Podium. It's an awesome tool to help you get reviews online and to do web chat on your website, but also to do text message communication. If you don't have a tool to text message, Podium is a great one to look at. But we do a Net Promoter Score on there as well. So that's it. I'll stop because I don't want to just keep talking. I know John needs to add in. So I put up my email. I'll share it in the chat too. You can find me on LinkedIn, whatever. I'm easy to find. But I'll stop sharing and kick it over to John.
That was awesome, Aaron. Awesome, awesome. All right, John, I know that you are just sitting there on the edge of your seat with additional comments. So
Okay.
Let us have it.
Well, there's a reason I use a standing desk, so I can kind of like get my energy out. When I get excited, I can get my energy out with my feet down here on this topographical standing mat that I'm on. But all that to say, Aaron, I love that. And I knew kind of going into this, just so y'all know, Aaron and I didn't really prep together for this. We each prepped on our own. But I knew when Karen and I were talking about this, I said, no, I think Aaron and I will be a great pair, because I know from past conversations, basically I endorse everything he just said, and then I'll add my 2 cents. But the key to everything Aaron's sharing is really just, and it's in any period of change of any kind, but it's especially relevant right now, is you have to get clear on who your customer is and what do they need. Your business is not about, it's not about you, which is it's like the weirdest like mind game for an entrepreneur or a business owner or a leader of any kind, but it's not about you. I mean, like Coworker Columbia is my baby. I created it. It no longer belongs to me. It now belongs to the customer. And my goal, my job is to help understand what does the customer need and how can I can provide that for them. So if you take nothing else away from this conversation, I hope you take that away from what Aaron's saying and what I'm saying too. But let's talk about the customer for a minute. Let's talk about what they're going through, right? Because given not just COVID-19, right? COVID-19, global pandemic, once in a lifetime, crazy thing, right? Well, we also had a massive government response and lockdowns all over the world that shut down businesses, the economy, day-to-day life. I mean, that's its own separate thing. I mean, it's related, but it's its own thing. And so we just have to acknowledge that for a minute and say that comes at a high cost, emotionally and financially. And so on that note, I would say that I think it's really important that we stop and just think about your customer. Now, if you don't know who your customer is, like maybe whatever you're selling, you're thinking, well, yeah, I mean, but anybody could be my customer. I would encourage you to back up for a second and think through who is your target customer. If there's one person, you could just have 100 or 1,000 of that one person that you could serve with your business. Who would that be? You have to get some clarity on that before you can have any empathy as a human being, because all we're doing in business is we're humans interacting with other humans. You might be a B2C company or a B2B company. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You're humans interacting with humans in one way or another. So the question is, the humans on the other end of your business, the customers, your lifeline, what's going on in their life right now? And you have to have that empathy with them. So with that, I find it really helpful. I think the tool that's been the most helpful for me in this current crisis has actually been Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of marketing. Now, you were nodding your head until I said marketing, right? Because you're like, wait, no, John, we're talking about Abraham Maslow's marketing hierarchy of needs, right? Like we learned about this in Psychology 101. Yes, but it's actually also a hierarchy of marketing. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I don't have any fancy slides, but I can describe it for you. And a great Google search will give you a good image for it. But Abraham Maslow, in I think it was like the 1940s or 1950s, he came up with this idea to really describe human motivation. And he was explaining what we've all know to be true, which is that generally as humans, we have sort of like an order in which we worry about things. So the first thing we worry about in life are our physical needs. So do we have immediate physical safety? Like there's no one around us throwing a knife at us. There's no rocks falling on our head, okay? Do we have our immediate physical needs met? Like we have food, like we have water, right? Basic needs. If you are hangry, right? Like you're short on food, you're short on water, it doesn't matter. Nothing else about your business or anybody else's product matters. You don't care about the security alarm system from Aaron Whitaker if you haven't had lunch and it's 3 p.m., right? So everyone's first needs are their physical needs. Their second category of needs are their safety needs. So this is the psychological part where you start going, okay, I've taken care of my immediate need for food and water, and now all of a sudden I'm looking, okay, do I have money in the bank? Do I have a roof over my head? Now I'm wondering, do I have an alarm system installed from Preventia at my business or my home, right? So this is the safety. So Aaron's great because his business is right there, right after you get to the physical needs. But people can't even think about the safety needs until their physical needs are met. And the third category, the third in the hierarchy is love and belonging. So that's when you start thinking about relationships. Those are the relationships close to you, like your spouse or your parents or your kids. But they're also the idea of having time to hang out with friends. I mean, that's not on your radar at all if you're worried about not having a roof over your head, if you're homeless. So then above that are things like esteem. Like I'm not even going to really talk about those other categories, but things like self-actualization, becoming the fullest version of yourself and having esteem and respect from your peers. Normally, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of marketing is a relatively useful tool because people in your audience, target customers that you're talking to, are at various different points. But what happened was in March 2020, every single person on the planet got dropped down to the bottom tier. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter if you were up there at self-actualization trying to become the best version of yourself, or if you were trying to get the respect of your peers, or you were trying to build a loving relationship. All of a sudden, every single person got knocked to the bottom rung where you were scared for your life. Now, most of us, because we just had no idea, we were like, is this the plague? Is this the plague, or is this just a fluke? What is this? But we all got knocked down to this level. We had to suddenly become armchair medical examiners to try to figure out how concerned we should be for our immediate health and safety because of COVID-19. Now then begins the climb, but there's no jumping back. There's no snapping back. Then begins the climb. As people, human beings, begin to feel that their immediate safety needs are met, their immediate physical needs are met, then they can move into the safety and they can kind of build a little bit more of that safety net. Maybe they become a little more comfortable with things like social distancing or taking that check from the government and sticking it into an emergency fund or something like that. And then going from there, then you can start to think about love and belonging. But pretty much nobody is up there in those upper tiers right now. Almost no one is really thinking about self-actualization or how do I become the best version of myself or how do I become the most respected, wealthiest, richest person on the planet. No, I mean, there are a few exceptions, I'm sure, but and there are also people who are psychopaths who aren't connected to their community at all, who are probably just stayed up there the whole time. But that's not, you got to assume that's not your target customer. Your target customer is on this journey. And so you have to get clear on where are they? What are they going through right now? And you need to first and foremost adjust your messaging. So you may not actually need to change your products right away. So whether your products or services, whatever they may be, you may not need to change them immediately. But you should start by thinking, how do my products and services address my customers' needs where they are, right? So, well, Aaron, let's just take your security alarm system as a great example. That if backing up a little bit, I think most people are moving out of that first tier right now, or the second tier. But still, if you're thinking that you're talking about an alarm system, there's a difference between saying like, look, we want you to be able to sleep at night, right? I think Aaron, you actually say something along that in your branding, don't you, for the business?
Our core purpose is we exist to help you sleep at night and get the most out of your day. So
exactly.
You nailed it,
Yep, there you go. So sleep at night, that's part of those first two, right? The physical needs and the safety needs, right? It's that whole idea. But get the most out of your day, that's up there a little bit, right? That probably become a little bit less relevant in the last month. It's still important, and we're probably getting back to the part where that's relevant now. But a lot less people were thinking about getting the most out of the day, and they were just trying to get through the day, right? And, Chris Coyne and I, we were just talking about this yesterday about the fact that so much of us, we've had, like, anyone who had any kind of buffer emotionally or mentally around them, where you could just kind of like take little dings in your day where like something just went a little bit out of the norm, that buffer has been eroded. And so most of us are kind of like gradually rebuilding this. But like this morning, I mean, candidly, like my toddlers were really mean to me this morning. And I struggled to start my day because I don't have the margin to absorb all of that. And so you got to just get clear on where is your target customer and what are they doing. So whatever you're selling, you've got to think through how do you connect it to what people need. There were a lot of people that just a couple weeks ago were selling like physical health and fitness products, for example, where all of their messaging in January was, look at me, you can look like me, you can look awesome with your rock hard abs, and you can be on the beach, and you could be having the time of your life. And that's tone deaf. Anybody who still has that message is completely tone deaf. Instead, first of all, a lot of people who have these Instagram businesses or, physical training businesses, a lot of them just stopped completely. They didn't know what to do because they recognized that it was tone deaf and they didn't know how to respond. But some of them recognized this change and they shifted their model. They shifted it to say, look, right now, there's very little you can control, right? But there's a few things you can, and one of them is your own physical health. And so you need to make sure that you are in top physical shape to take care of yourself and your family, right? They're still in the exact same product, but the way they talked about it has changed. And those people who have made that change have already seen phenomenal success. And so really we're just talking about empathy, which at a surface level may seem like a basic human skill, but it's really not. It is a complex soft skill that you need to become successful in business. You need to work on developing your empathy advantage forever. I mean, it's all about informing your empathy and getting to know people. So that's the first thing I'll say is that you have to think about how does what you offer, products or services, how does that solve some problem for people in those first 3 tiers, right? If your business is structured right now to give people the respect of their peers or a big reputation, or to become achieve their full potential, then I would say I would want you to go back to the drawing board real quick and see if you can reframe what you're offering based on what people need right now, which they need their physical needs met, they need their safety needs met, and more, they need their love and belonging needs met. I mean, so many people now are saying, look, extroverts, like I know Danny, Kara, and I have all had joking conversations about how we were a little twitching a little bit without all the social interaction. You know, all of us stuck. And some of us, like Nicole said, I'm fine, but that's not true for some of us. So anyways, the love and belonging thing, that's kind of a little more personal about where you fall on that spectrum. But I mean, that's really important. And one of the things we said when we kind of announced this workshop was we wanted to talk about what it means that today is day 1 in the new changing economy. Now, like Aaron, I've been saying for years, there's a recession coming, guys. Like, it's just math. I mean, at a certain point, if you look at the history of recessions in the U.S., we have them every so many years, and we were due. I mean, it's just at a certain point, it's just math. And my background's economics before I got into entrepreneurship. And so I saw that, and I remember saying to a couple of friends, I was like, man, we've got so many problems right now. I wish someone would just kind of, do like they do in the IT industry, just turn it off and turn it back on. But I was kidding. I mean, just to be clear, I was kidding. I did not actually mean that we should do that, but we did. We turned it off, and we're starting to turn it back on. What that means is that today is day 1. It's not a question of how do you adapt your past business model and your past marketing language to the new reality, although that's kind of what we're doing. Instead, I would encourage you to get in front of a whiteboard and just literally think, okay, it's day 1. What do I want to build? Because the reality is the economy and the culture that we have today is different. It's new. That doesn't mean that it's bad. In fact, there's a lot of good things happening right now too. There's good and there's bad, just like always. But, most of us still remember 9/11 and how the world really changed a lot in that time. But we don't really think about the fact that we never actually went back. There was no snap back to pre-9/11. We still have the TSA in airports, allegedly. I haven't actually been to an airport in a while, but we still have the TSA in the airports. We still have piles of paperwork every time we open a bank account that says, no, I promise I will not fund terrorism. We still have the Patriot Act. There are all these little signs all over our world for this one event that drastically changed our world. Now, we've adapted to the reality, but we've never gone back to pre-9/11. And something similar is going to happen now. We're not trying to go back to pre-COVID-19. We're going into the new future, and it's going to look different. Like Aaron said, change is it's part of Preventia's history, but it's also just part of what it means to be a human, right? Like, we don't stay the 3-year-old chasing me out the door this morning. We don't stay 3 years old for the rest of our life. We can't get away with throwing our oatmeal when we don't like breakfast for the rest of our life, right? So we have to actually grow as human beings, but that's what it means to be in business. It's to be in business, to be an entrepreneur is really about creating real solutions to real problems for real people. I'm going to say that again. Create real solutions to real problems for real people. The problems that I solve with my business and that Aaron solves with his business and that you solve with whatever you're working on, they probably didn't exist in the same framework that they exist now, even 50 years ago or 100 years ago. And we don't know what's going to exist 50 or 100 years from now. And so we just have to adopt that. Our goal is not to stop changing. Our goal is to just simply embrace the fact that each day is day 1 in the new reality. So I want to encourage everyone to look at this as an opportunity but we did turn it off and turn it back on again. We do get a chance to go back to the whiteboard and say, what do we want to build? And we have a world that's actually right now, people are more receptive than normal to whatever you tell them the new model is. I found so many people have what I call COVID compassion, where you talk to the customer and you're like, hey, we're going to change things. Here's the new thing. And they're just like, okay, we get it. Sure. I mean, they just this doesn't normally happen. Normally, if you go to a customer and you say, we're changing things, they get frustrated and mad. But right now, people have so much compassion for leaders, for business owners, for entrepreneurs, that they understand that whatever you're doing, if you come back and say, look, this is the new way we're going to do it, they get it. 9 times out of 10, they understand that this is a very unique circumstance. That means you have a unique opportunity to actually recreate everything you do. So I would encourage you to take advantage of that and focus on where you have the opportunity to do that and to step into the new future. So this is something I'm really personally fired up about. I mean, we've already done this with our business, where we were open for 58 days before we closed Cohort Columbia for 48 days. And then we've been reopened now, and we've already been reinventing so many things in the back of the business, and you'll see more and more about that. A lot of it has to be leaning into more community and coaching and saying that, yeah, I mean, we have a co-working space, but that's never actually been the heart of what we do. So the community piece and the coaching piece is you're gonna see that continue to develop. So that's what that means for us, but that may mean something completely different for you, whatever situation you're in. One more thing I'll say is simply that we're in this together, in the sense that so much of business, I mean, I'm sure you've read the stats about what percentage of businesses fail every year within the first couple of years. It's abysmal. It's a horrible stat. But everybody usually does it alone. I mean, all these business owners, they go through this alone, where they have their own singular individual problems that they face. They don't know how to face them. And then they kind of fall apart or crumble or make a bad decision somewhere along the way. Now, what's really unusual and perhaps special about the current crisis is the fact that we're all experiencing our own version of the exact same crisis. And so you can, talk to another entrepreneur, another business leader, another business owner, or anybody else really in the world. And, every conversation right now, I know for me, starts with, how are you doing? I mean, we just get it. Like, I mean, how does this look like for you? I mean, everybody is seeing a different impact, varying degrees. In Tennessee, I think we've actually had a pretty reasonable, all things in the bigger scheme of things, we have the good side of the coin in Tennessee. But still, it's been rough for a lot of people. And I know I've already seen a couple signs pop up downtown of businesses that say closed for good. And that's going to keep happening, unfortunately, but we're going to keep doing our best to try to help people adapt. So So that's kind of my little speech, Kara. I'll let you kind of help us kind of turn that.
I love it. And I have questions rolling in my head. So I'm going to channel my inner Danny Coleman.
Okay.
And so what I want to talk about for the last 10 minutes or so here is, so change, we know that change is inevitable. If you're not changing, you're not growing. And if you're not changing and growing, you're dying. I mean, there's kind of no such thing as the status quo. But if I own ABC business and I have gotten out of bed this morning and I just have this strong feeling of, I need to do something different. I need to do something better. I need to not just be who I am, but I need to go to that next step. I need to go to that next level of thriving and growing and improving. And for some people, change is good, and change and change, they welcome change and they embrace change. But for a lot of folks, change is really scary. And for a lot of employees, it's scary. So number one, I think doing your homework, to Aaron's point, doing your homework and changing intentionally and for the right reasons is certainly one of those things that helps you embrace change and to be more comfortable with it. But if I have gotten out of bed and I know that I need to make a change, I know I need to do better. I know I need to make my employees comfortable with that. But what are those concrete steps that I really need to start in my evaluation process for looking at, I need to change 1, 2, and 3. I also think a good rule of thumb is don't change everything at once.
Right.
Let's start with 2 or 3 bites out of the elephant, and then we'll move on to the next part. So just what advice would you give someone who's kind of gotten to that point where they know they need to change and they know they want to improve, but it's a little scary? And to Chris Coyne's point, one of the major resources you need is a group of people. We all need our people for whatever period of life we're in. But you need a group of people who are going to be like your mom and tell you honestly that, no, you shouldn't wear that outfit. It's horrible. Or yes, that's great. I mean, we need those people in our lives that are going to look at us and go and tell us the brutal, honest truth, or help us see it in a more objective light than we can see ourselves or our own business. So, and either one of you can chime in and start, but that's kind of where I want us to kind of end our focus, is just those real specific steps. And if you have a resource, a book, or an author or podcast or somebody that you'd like to look up to, let's throw those out there as well.
So I'd love to speak to that first real quick, just because it's something that I think I do have a book to reference on this. And it comes out in a couple months, and it's mine. I'm working with a publisher right now. So if you'd like to join the waiting list for that book, you can actually go to surviveandthrivebook.com, hence the name of this workshop, by the way, Survive and Thrive, book.com, and join the waiting list for that. But I just speaking briefly, I think that there's a very clear order of events I'm speaking to the business owner, the entrepreneur, or the decision maker, right? I mean, there are people at every level who are different contexts about what we can do, but talking specifically to the business owner, the entrepreneur, the decision maker who can make those kind of changes, I think step one is to fix your finances. And it's not actually the most exciting step. It's not the most exciting. And so I want to say step one is get in front of a whiteboard, because that's like the fun activities, like map out the new future. And I want you to get to there. But step one is actually to fix your finances. And so the reason why that is because things changed, and you have to first make sure that you have a foundation to support yourself, to support your employees, and to support the continued operations of your business. If you don't have a financial framework in place to do that, that gives you a runway to make change, then none of the other change you come up with is actually going to help. So I personally ascribe to and love the system Profit First. There are other systems out there that for financial management. Profit First is kind of like it's kind of like the envelope system for business, is how I've ever described it. If you're familiar with like the budgeting system of envelopes, but it's like that for a business. There's a book on that called Profit First by Mike McAllowitz. We've got it here on my shelf. We actually sell it here at Cowork Columbia, but it's just a great book. But whatever the resources you use, it's kind of beside the point. Like if you've got a great financial partner in your CFO or accountant, awesome. But the point is you have to make sure that you fix your finances first. If you don't have a plan for how you're going to spend money based on reality, not prophecy, that's a problem. A lot of business owners spend money based on prophecy. They say, well, next month we're going to make $10,000 in sales, so let's go ahead and spend $7,000. Well, the problem is when something like a pandemic happens and your sales get a hit, then all of a sudden you're left hanging out to dry. And so you need to change that and make sure that you're spending money based on actual results. The second thing, I think, is to master your marketing. So step one, fix your finances. Step two, master your marketing. And by that, I mean, go back to what I said earlier about Maslow's hierarchy of needs or hierarchy of marketing. You get clear on how does the language you're using currently about your business relate to where your customer currently is in their life. And then step three is to supercharge your sales. And so for that, that's where we get into some of the stuff Aaron mentioned about simplifying your sales process, right? Making sure that you got it as simple as possible for people to contact you, learn more about what you have, to actually buy the product, to buy multiple products, right? I love it when a business has an entry-level product and a flagship product, and they sort of got a bunch of stuff in between. It's either complementary or supplementary, but you want to have a very clear point where someone's like, look, I'm just kind of want to get started. You want to have a very clear low barrier entry-level product. That's maybe that's the appetizer if you're a restaurant or whatever, whatever that is for your business. And you want to have a flagship product. I mean, I love this. Someone asked me once, they said, John, if I went to your website right now, what is the most amount of money you would allow me to spend? And I was like, whoa, what do you mean by that? I'll let you spend as much as you want. He was like, no, without talking to you, right? If I just want to browse your products and I'm feeling like I can trust you and I want to go all in, how do I go all in? And I realized I didn't have a really good process for that. So, what's your flagship product? What's that kind of someone who says like, I want the full package. You want to be able to offer that too. So step one, fix your finances. Step two, master your marketing. Step three, supercharge your sales. And then I would say, go to surviveandthrivebook.com and join the waiting list if you want to copy my book. I should probably have some sort of giveaway. Like maybe I'll say the first, I don't know. I don't want to say anything.
First person to comment gets a free book.
Don't worry, John. We'll get something. I'll get something out of you. I promise.
Okay, great. Yeah. I was gonna say
Aaron, what would be your advice? Where's the first place you start when you're like, I feel this urge to make a change in this area? What's kind of your go-to process?
Yeah. So, as you were asking the question, you triggered lots and lots of things that I would want to share, but we don't have time for all that. So first of all, I'm going to go to just a classic. I had some phenomenal sales training as a 19-year-old kid, and a phrase that has never left me is a checkup from the neck up. So if you have the mental thought that is negative, like I think I hear you saying kind of being down about it, like you do have to make sure to get yourself in the right mental frame. And you do that by surrounding yourself with the right people. And so you touched on that. I'm a huge believer in being the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Look around at who you're spending the time with. Listen to what they're saying. Are they positive contributors to your mental state? Are they supporters? And I don't mean rah, rah, yeah, you can do it. Like, are they just genuinely supporters in some way? Do they tell you what you need to hear? Or are they just always negative? And you know these people. Everybody has had them in their life and still have them if they haven't eliminated them. It's one of the hardest things to do, to walk away from a relationship, but there are relationships you should walk away from. Not everybody follows the same path and grows in the same way. And if these close relationships aren't growing with you, then you do have to shift what that relationship is. There's different people in my life now than I had 5 years ago. Some are still the same. Some are in it in a different way. But the people that are really influencing you need to be positive supporters. Okay, so a checkup from the neck up. And I'm also a huge believer in controlling your own mental thoughts. So again, I was taught positive self-talk. If that little voice in my head is trying to say something negative, I've got to create a louder voice in my head to shut it up. And so get yourself in the right mental state first, to be excited, to be able to go out and take action. That's really critical. Second to that, and I'm just regurgitating what you said, Kara, what is most important to change right now? Okay, we follow a process, a planning process where we plan for 10 years, we plan for 4 to 5 years out, we plan for a year, and we also plan for a quarter. And every quarter is boiled down to the 1, 2, or 3 things, no more than that, that we absolutely have to change this quarter. And so that's the next step, is figure out what is it that really needs to change. And I'll say what I said earlier. It's not about me, it's about your customers. So have some 4Q conversations, do some polling, find out some real data and real feedback from those customers about what their needs are right now. I'll share a quick story. When the pandemic hit and it got really, really tough, real heavy, all of our support systems as a company, our manufacturers, they do a great job of trying to help us. And they all came to us and they said, Aaron, we have a phenomenal program that we've been working on for 2 weeks and we've got this all figured out. We are going to help you pivot and offer DIY alarm systems because you can't go into people's homes right now. And they came up with a great process for it. We've looked at DIY systems for 5 years as an opportunity on our SWOT analysis. We've looked at it as a threat on our SWOT analysis. We have determined who our customer is, and our customer is not interested in installing their own alarm system. So despite the pandemic, despite the challenges that were in front of us, we made a conscious decision not to pivot to DIY alarms because it's not who we were as a company, it's not who our customers were. And we invested the time that we would have invested in that in figuring out how to give people confidence and trust that they should allow us into their home. We know that there are people, because I am one of them, that can't install their own alarm, but they want it, they need it, right? It's sad. I have to get service from my own company because I can't install or service an alarm system. But we know who our customer is. We know her name, we know her age, we know how many kids she has, we know exactly what it is. And so we can go back to that when we make these decisions of what do we need to change right now, and we change what's important. We change what is most important, and it's super easy to start adding to that list, and you've got to resist it. 1 change, 2 changes, maybe 3, but what's realistic to change right now that the team can manage, or if you're a solo entrepreneur that you can manage, because you cannot do it all at once. So get your mind right, surround yourself with the right people, and then figure out what is most important to change, and just create a plan for it. And John, I know John's going to keep pivoting and working on resources for entrepreneurs. I think I'm a long-time member now, I think 5 years going on that I'm a member of Entrepreneur Organization in Nashville, and it surrounds me with a lot of good people to go to. I know there's resources here in Columbia. John may be able to speak to it even more. John and Danny and Chris are some of the best. So we're fortunate to have them on the call. But John, maybe there's other stuff you'll be rolling out that are good resources that if people don't have the right people around them, that they can start to do that.
Yeah.
Heck, just go to a chamber event, get on this call, go to the coffee, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, and I was going to say, so John, if you have a resource, if you want to put your contact information also in the chat, your email, your phone number, your business address, but you can find John downtown at Co-work Columbia. And between last week and this week, our conversations have been too good to stop. So Chris and Danny and Aaron and John don't know it yet, but I'm going to force this.
Oh, do we lose Kara for a second?
Oh.
You can't force us if you're frozen.
Can't force us if you're frozen.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd love to.
Aaron, you set that up really well by saying John, Chris, and Danny, because what you don't know, Aaron, is actually John, Chris, and Danny have actually been meeting together and working together over at Co-work Columbia about how we can all join forces in what we're doing. So, so Chris is formerly the resident mentor over here, and then Danny, I think we just decided a title for you along some lines of training manager or something like that, right?
Director.
We were talking about that today. The training director. Sorry, I didn't mean to demote you real quick, but so anyways, all that to say, we've all been working together and sharing our shared passion for helping people develop their own ability to lead, whether that be in business or whatever that is in your personal life. And so when I say go to rebuild2020.info and then put your information, I'm not saying so you can hear from John. I'm saying so you can hear from some of the best. And I may have a note or two to throw in there, but I love actually all of the expertise that Chris and Danny bring to the table. Really elevates everything we're doing. So rebuild2020.info, go to there, raise your hand if you want to learn more. We actually have the first workshop already scheduled for, it's called Refocus. And it's just a one-time workshop that's all about walking through an actual exercise to revisit each piece of your business plan in the new reality, in the new economy. So we've already got that scheduled actually for next week. So on June 18th at 2 p.m. And it's through Co-work Columbia. I'm sure I'm sorry we lost Kara, but I'm sure the chamber will support that. But this is something we're doing through what we're doing. We've paid to make this free.
I heard they highly endorse it. That's what Kara told me earlier.
Thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it.
Only she was here.
Yeah. We lost Nicole too, so that's not a good sign.
Yeah, it looks like maybe they lost their internet out there.
Yeah, so rebuild2020.info. And then, like I mentioned, I mean, June 18th at 2 p.m. So that's next week is our workshop that's called Refocus. So, Danny, anything else you want to say to that? Since, Kara's here, I guess we get to run the show. I'm not sure what's going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm really looking forward to going through it with some people. I've always kind of imagined kind of creating a curriculum that was almost like work-based like a workbook-based kind of curriculum so that people could go through it in a very kind of tactile and truly class-like way. I talk about the fact that I deal with the how, which is more about how work gets done rather than the why, which is the inspiration that creates and perpetuates it. So this program looks like it's filled with a lot of how. And so I'm excited for that because when you're a small business owner, you don't really have the time to kind of fool around with a bunch of theory and listen to a bunch of people lecturing. You really just want to be given tools that you can go and implement, which is actually the one question I had that Kara didn't open up QA really, but I was going to ask Aaron what he thought about this as far as just, how do you go from someone who's too busy to attend something like this to realizing the value in time trade there is worth it? Because obviously you figure that out. But you know what I'm talking about, where there's a certain size business where you're doing so much in the business that you don't really see the value in attending something like this and learning as far as it would trade, the hour you trade for it.
So I'll reiterate what John said. You've got to have the financial aspect of it. You've got to have some type of actual foundation as a business to then start investing. So the investments for me early were small, right? It was reading books. It was listening to podcasts. It was maybe getting time from someone that could share knowledge with me. I didn't participate a lot with chambers or things like that in the first few years because I had my head down working so hard and couldn't fully attend things like this that were at a set scheduled time. I hear that so much. But if you're not even thinking about how to accomplishing it, setting goals, and then figuring out how to get it to be a priority that you can dedicate yourself. When I write a book at some point, which probably will never happen, it's going to be leaving your business to grow your business, because the best thing an entrepreneur can do if you're building out a full team is figure out how to be able to leave and everything not break. And you have to actually leave most of the time as an entrepreneur to successfully do that. And so it's something I do intentionally. But yeah, you've got to just start making small investments. So reading and listening first, and then get to the point where you can say, oh, I can step away from my business for an hour, even though that's the scariest thing in the world, right? My phone, or the office phone for Provincia, rang my cell phone for years. And I'd be rushing out of a person's house on a sales call to try and answer the incoming office call. So you say, hey, I don't have time for that, but you've got to make time to invest in yourself.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Aaron. And well, just one last thing I'll say, just to emphasize what we're doing with this new program, Refocus and Rebuild, is that, I mean, we already wrote the check. Like, we already bought all the curriculum for 20 people to go through the 10-week program. So I'm putting myself out there to say that I know that this is important for small business owners. And thankfully, we got our good friend Caleb over at Chick-fil-A to help cover some of the costs, but still.
There you go.
Yeah. So next week's workshop is free. It's Refocus, but you do have to sign up for it because there are limited seats, because it is actually a workshop. Like, there is an exercise. We're bringing in a paid facilitator, a trained facilitator to this. And then you also hear from us talking about Rebuild, which is this 10-week program that'll be a paid program, but it'll be heavily discounted because we've gotten sponsors like Chick-fil-A to cover most of the cost of it. So Rebuild, on the other side of this, is this program that we're launching July. It starts July 1st. So if you're interested, reach out. Go to rebuild2020.info just to sign up. You don't have to pay, just to say, hey, I'm interested. And we'll talk to you about it and kind of explain the details. And but our goal is to help Murray County and Muletown and, you know, all these Columbia businesses really thrive in the current. And so we can set an example for really the rest of the world. If they're trying to figure out what to do, we would love to have a little light post over here in Columbia of what it looks like to really rise from the ashes as a this metaphor is going to get weird real fast. I'm just
very dramatic.
We're going to thrive. So, yeah. I guess.
Well, I appreciate everybody's time, jumping on here, and Sarah and Nicole have emailed and said, oh, their internet crashed. So I guess I'll stop the recording. I'll stop the recording for them so it exists later.